Have you ever used sentences with fancy vocabulary only to find out there was something wrong with it? Have you ever written English questions just to be corrected by your teacher saying you had auxiliary issues? Let's get it sorted today. Hi everyone, welcome to another grammar lesson. First things first, what are auxiliaries? Auxiliaries are helping or helper verbs. They help the main verb to show the tense or time of the action, the mood of the action, if it is negative, if it is a question, and also the voice, if it is active or if it is passive, that I'm going to be covering in my next video. So if you're from the future, you already have the link in the description or in the card here. Now there are two types of auxiliary verbs: main auxiliaries and modal auxiliaries. Let's cover main auxiliaries first and put them aside so that we know what we're doing. So the main auxiliary verbs are to be, to have, and to do, which have different forms in different tenses. And if you remember, I told you that the auxiliary can show the tense or the time of your sentence. Now, if you want to make significant progress in English, especially if you're a beginner or even an intermediate level student, you need to master the tenses. And to do that, I have a playlist for you in the description that says all tenses in English. So the different forms of be in different tenses are am, is, are, was, were, being, been, will be. The different forms of to have in different tenses are have, has, had, having, will have. And the different forms of to do are do, does, did, and will do. For example, I'm filming a video right now. Right? It's a present continuous sentence. And what gives us the hint to what tense is being used in this statement is am and that ing. More examples. Have you seen my keys? It's a question in the present perfect. Ivy had planted those roses before she sold the house. It's a past perfect sentence. Had planted. It was snowing at this time last week. Past continuous. Good times. The door had been locked from the inside. Passive voice in the past perfect. We will be working from 4 to 8 tomorrow. Future continuous. They didn't talk about their new plans. Negative in the simple past. Okay, we know what auxiliaries are. Let's see how and where to use them. To be is used in continuous tenses, but you need to use the correct form of be in the corresponding tense. For example, in the present continuous tense, the forms of be are am, is, and are. So the general formula for continuous tenses is be, main verb, ing. And as I just said, be has to be in its correct form in the tense. In the present continuous tense, I am wearing a gray sweater. That was when I was writing these. Right now, I'm not wearing a gray sweater, obviously. So I used I am not to show the mood of my sentence, which is negative. Future continuous, I will be editing this video tonight. Will be is the correct form of be in the future tense. Past continuous, we were walking in the garden when it started to rain. Use the auxiliary have in perfect tenses, like the present perfect, the future perfect, and the past perfect tense, and also their continuous forms. They use have as well, but there is an extra thing that you need to use there that I'm going to be mentioning later, so watch along. The correct form of have is used plus the past participle, and that correct form of have is what is used in the correct tense, in the corresponding tense. The present perfect tense uses have or has plus past participle. The new menu of the restaurant has become really popular. Past perfect, Harry had never lived in an apartment before he moved to Tokyo. Future perfect, Lucifer will have left for the airport by 5. So the correct forms of have in the past perfect and future perfect tenses are had and will have. Here comes the point that I mentioned a bit earlier about perfect continuous tenses, which use be and have together as their auxiliary. Have changes in the corresponding tense, but be is always been. It's always in the past participle form. So the general formula is the correct form of have, been, verb, ing. In the future perfect continuous, Miles will have been cleaning the attic for 5 hours at 10 o'clock. Will have been is the auxiliary here. Present perfect continuous, you have been watching this video for a few minutes now. Have been. Past perfect continuous, the company had been downsizing before it announced bankruptcy. So had been is our auxiliary here. In statements, auxiliaries do, does, and did are used in negatives. And the general formula goes like do, does, did, not plus the base form of the verb. You need to use the base form and the base form only. You can't use the base form plus s or es. You can't use ing. You can't use ed. Just the base form. Can't emphasize this enough. It is the base form. There's nothing added to the base form when it's using negatives after do, does, and did. For example, in the simple present tense, your essay doesn't explain why the issue happens. Doesn't is the contracted, shortened form of does not. Simple past, we didn't have dinner last night. Do, does, and did can be used in positive statements as well for emphasis. For example, as an English teacher, I tell you, do practice English every day. I'm emphasizing practice here by using the auxiliary do before it. Main auxiliary verbs are used in making questions, like yes-no questions, and the general formula and structure is auxiliary, subject, verb. For example, is it snowing? Are you going out? Did you take your gloves? Do you like making a snowman? Have you ever made a snowman? Like, snow is a very important thing in my life. WH questions. The general structure formula is WH question word, auxiliary, subject, verb. Like, what will you do? Who did they talk to? Where have you been? How many of the students have handed their essays in? How long will you have been working on your thesis by the end of January? You can see that structure. WH question word, auxiliary, subject, verb. Okay, now I have a seriously life-saving hack here for you. In the simple present and simple past tenses, when the WH question is asking about the subject of the statement, then you cannot use do, does, or did. Let's see how. Johnny calls Ivy every day. It's a simple present tense. And the subject is Johnny. Ivy is the object. We want to ask a question about Johnny, right? So let's ask a question about the subject of the first sentence. Somebody calls Ivy every day. We don't know who that person is. Who calls Ivy every day? Who calls Ivy every day? See, I didn't use any auxiliaries. And in the simple past tense, Johnny called Ivy yesterday. Who called Ivy yesterday? No need for did. Now, asking the same question about the object would go like this. Johnny calls Ivy. We want to ask about Ivy. Ivy is the object. So, Johnny calls someone. Who does Johnny call every day? We're in the simple past tense. Who did Johnny call yesterday? Compare them. This, who does Johnny call every day? Asking about the object, with who calls Ivy every day? Asking about the subject. And this, who did Johnny call yesterday? With who called Ivy yesterday? Notice the difference? So if you learn this super simple but extra crucial rule, you will be something about 98 steps ahead of your peers. Trust me, I am an English teacher and I see what not knowing about this rule can do to students every single day. But after I tell them about it, they are like, oh, phew. Now the next thing to learn about auxiliaries is that you can make your statements negative by simply adding not to the auxiliary. There are two exceptions though. Number one, when your statement includes the adverb of frequency never. Never itself is a negative element, and you can't have two negative elements in one statement in standard English. So, I will never go there again. You can't say I will not never go there again. It doesn't make sense. And two, when your statement starts with something like I don't think itself makes the sentence negative. Like, I don't think she has enough time for it. If I say I don't think she doesn't have enough time for it, it'll change the meaning. I don't think she doesn't have enough time for it means she has enough time for it. So why say it in such a complicated way? Don't do it. And of course, auxiliary plus not can be contracted, shortened. Like, I do not like apples can be contracted to I don't like apples. I really don't. They make me sick. They're way too sweet. But then again, I love chocolate. I don't know what my issue is. Do I love sugar? Do I not? No one knows. Back to the examples. She will not give up trying. She won't give up trying. Josh hasn't started setting up the table he bought. He won't have finished the project in 2 months. You can use auxiliaries in short answers. Are you planning to start your own business? Yes, I am. Have you studied chapter 4 yet? No, we haven't. Now, the last thing I'm going to tell you about main auxiliary verbs is that to be, to have, and to do can be used as main verbs. Like, I am an English teacher. Am, which is a form of be, is the main verb of my sentence. I have lots of new ideas for my future videos. I really do. I do aerobics every morning. That's a lie. I don't. I just wanted to have a fancy sentence as an example. Congratulations, you have mastered main auxiliaries. It's time to move on to modal auxiliaries. Let's start with the list of modal auxiliaries, or in short, modals. Will, would, can, could, may, might, shall, should, ought to, and must. They mostly have social functions, as in giving suggestions, making speculations, making guesses, and stuff like that. Let's see them through. Modal auxiliaries are auxiliaries, as the name suggests, but there are some differences between them and main auxiliaries. Like, each modal has one form for all kinds of subjects, singular and plural. I will do something, you will do something, she will do something, they will do something. So will is used for all types of subjects. So is can, so is could, and all the others. The second thing that is very important about modals is that they only use the base form of the verb. You can't use an ed form of the verb or a simple past form of irregular verbs after modals. You can't use the ing. You can't use the third person singular s form like goes. No, you only use the base form of the verb after a modal auxiliary. Examples: I can speak English. Julia can play tennis really well. Cats can walk through unbelievably narrow spaces, like this narrow. So, as you can see, can is the same for both singular and plural subjects, and the verb is in its base form. We've covered the differences between modals and main auxiliaries. Now let's talk about their similarities. Just like main auxiliaries, modals are used in questions, and they're used before the subject, just like main auxiliaries. In yes, no questions, we have modal, subject, base form. Would you open the door, please? In WH questions, you start with the WH question word, then the modal, then the subject, then the main verb, and whatever else you have inside your question. How could you do that? WH question word, modal, subject, do as the main verb, which is in its base form. They are made negative by adding not, just like main auxiliaries. Subject, modal, not, base form. Modal not can be contracted, like, you should not use this type of shampoo, or you shouldn't use this type of shampoo. He couldn't meet the deadline. Modals are used in short answers, Could you drive when you were 13? No, I couldn't. Alrighty, mighty. Now that we've got the similarities covered as well, let's deal with modals themselves, starting with will. Will is of course used to make all the future tenses like, will you rent a car for the road trip? I will become a successful YouTuber someday. I really will. But for that, I need your help. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Will is used to make requests like, will you be quiet please? It means shh, but it's a request made in a polite way. Won't can be used to make offers, like how? Won't you have some more tea? It means please have some more tea. I'm offering you some more tea. Our next modal on the list is would. Would is used to make requests. Would you? To make requests using would, never use would I. You're asking the other person to do something for you. Like, would you help me carry these bags? They're too heavy for me. Would is used to make offers. Would you like to? Would you like to join our book club? Modal number 3, can. Can is used to show ability, physical or mental. Like, I can't run, but I can walk really fast. It's also used to make requests like, can you help me with this math problem? Use can for asking and giving permission. Like, can I use the bathroom? Of course you can. You can use can to make offers. Can I help you? Can't shows an impossible situation. For instance, she can't be here now. She's always at work this time, so it's impossible for her to be here now. Modal number 4, could. Could is used to show past ability. He could read and write when he was 4. He had the ability. It's also used to make very polite requests. So the politest modal to use in making requests is could. Like, could I borrow your dictionary? And if you add a please, you are utmost polite. Could I borrow your dictionary, please? Couldn't shows impossible situations, but be careful, you can use it to talk about impossible future or present situations. For example, Jared couldn't be the murderer. It's impossible for Jared to be the murderer. Right now, it's a present situation because he has been live streaming from Asia for a month every day. A month. And we live far from Asia, so he can't be the murderer. You can replace couldn't with can't. May. May is used for asking and giving permission, just like can. May I leave a bit early today? Sure you may. May is also used for making requests, but you need to be careful. It's always may I when you're making requests. You can never use may you. Like, may I use your bathroom? You can use it to talk about probability. The website may be down due to server issues. It's used for expressing wishes or prayers, like, may all your dreams come true. The next modal is super easy. Might always talks about probability. Like, the traffic isn't usually that congested at this hour, but it might be a little tense because of the rain. Shall. Shall is used for making offers. Shall I help you? It's used for making suggestions. Let's go dancing, shall we? But it's not very common to use shall anymore. Should. Should is used for giving advice, recommendations, or suggestions. For example, you see your friend putting too much pressure on herself or himself, so you advise them to take some rest. You tell them, you should get some rest. Or you give suggestions or recommendations to people. You should try the new Thai restaurant next to the florists. They make awesome curry. You can also use should for speculations or deductions. Like, you have some pieces of information and you put them together to make a deduction, come to a conclusion, which is something like a guess. He said he would arrive around 6. It's now 6:02, so he should be here any minute. One thing about should that is very commonly mistaken is that people think should expresses obligation. Like when I say, you should take some rest, I am forcing you or I'm obliging you to take some rest, which is not true. Should can only imply a sense of obligation when it's said by the speaker, like, I should help him, he is in danger. I feel some sense of obligation on my own part, so I say I should help him, but I cannot make anyone do anything by saying you should do it. It's merely a suggestion, recommendation, or a piece of advice. Ought to is the same as should, only less common. We ought to spend more time together since we have so much fun every time we hang out. We should spend more time together. The only thing about ought to is that the to is included in the modal, so it doesn't change anything. You have to use the base form of the verb after ought to as well. And the final modal is must, which expresses obligation. Like, you must stop when the stoplight is red. When you're driving and the stoplight turns red, you must stop. If you don't, you will either have an accident or be fined. Mustn't, pay attention to the pronunciation, must not or mustn't. If you contract it, this T is silent. You will not pronounce it. You mustn't go over the speed limit, which expresses some prohibition. Like, if you go over the speed limit, something bad will happen. Again, you will either have an accident or get fined. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you found this video useful and that it helped you sort your auxiliary and modal auxiliary issues out. If you did find it useful, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel to help me grow and produce more grammar lessons. If you want tips on vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar, idioms, and a lot more, you can check out my shorts, which is under the shorts tab in my channel. Also, if you want free quizzes, you can click the link that says free quizzes in the description box. And I'll see you in my next video, which will be about passive voice, and I will put it in this end screen right here. And until then, take care. See ya. But you got corrected by you seriously, what am I thinking? The tense of the sentence is simple present. As I mentioned earlier, the playlist that says tenses, all tenses in English. And what gives us the hint to identifying to. By the way, this time I proofread everything 5 times. If I see any mistakes, I will be correcting them. Have plus, shame on me. You know, I have 67 billion things going on in my mind at the same time. We're good. So here's the point. That is our elevator, which is right behind this wall, which is fine. Are all elevators this noisy? I don't know. How do I know? Tell me in the comments. Who did they talk to? I forgot to remove the cursor. You can make your negative what? But it might be a little tense because of the rain.